Thank you for joining us today for this very brief and informative webinar, How to Deliver Your Message to Trucking Prospects for More Effective Lead Gen. Before we begin, let me introduce John Scranton. He's a licensed agent for a top 100 agency in New York, co-author of Sell More and Work Less, clearly an insurance agency marketing guru, and he's managed and helped execute many trucking, marketing, and lead gen projects. My name is Alan Bloom. I am an author. I have 2 books out. One is Your Virtual Success, and one is Sell More and Work Less. I was on the Inc. 500 for 2 consecutive years for tremendous growth, 1,000% growth. Created something called the Prospect Scorecard app and have done a lot of work specifically in insurance agency marketing. With that, let's begin with a little overview. So today, we're going to talk about content creation for effective lead gen, building your sales pipeline by leveraging different types of content to bring people to you, to convince people to talk to you with compelling content. So, of course, there's a process here. It begins with a quality prospect list. So that means everybody on the phone today, we have over 100 people on today. Do you have a great prospect list? And we look at a prospect list like a target. We're going to talk about that. Have you crafted a unique message? In other words, if I were to meet you, and you've probably heard the term elevator pitch, could you convince me in 30 to 60 seconds that I should continue a discussion about working with your trucking agency? It's the same thing holds true, by the way, for any business-to-business insurance agency. Today we're kind of talking about trucking-centric agencies. Now, as leads come in, do you have an effective lead handling and closed loop process? Very important. A great lead gen campaign will fail with a lousy lead handling process. And there's different programs, by the way, if you're dealing with fleets of 5 to 50 or even down to owner-operators versus larger fleets, 50, 100, 150 plus, different methodologies to accomplish the same thing. And lastly, have you branded your material? So with that, why don't we begin? So how do you create a great prospect list? We hear this question all the time. It's both simple and nuanced at the same time. So for example, if you don't have a great prospect list, which would come from an organization that does trucking list generation. As you know, truckers, of course, have to register. They have to be registered, but the quality of the lists that are then generated by organizations vary dramatically. So you need a high-quality vendor to help you with the list and then a process around that. You should create your list in the form of a target. And the target should be your bullseye. So perhaps your bullseye is 5 to 50 or 25 to 75. So that is the center of the universe. You want to focus on that first and most. But beyond that, you might be willing to talk to trucking fleets that are 10 trucks, 10 power units, or 100 power units. So then you have the concentric circles around your bullseye. Of course, we have to regionalize. Are you selling, for example, just in New England? Are you selling in Georgia only? Are you going to the southeastern United States? So you need to sort in that regard. Then there's another nuance. You just don't want to call or contact or market to people arbitrarily. You may say, I want to go 60 to 90 days out from renewal. That's my ideal point. Or you may say, no, I'm dealing with larger fleets. I want to be 90 days to 6 months from renewal. And then, of course, you need to update this, whether you color code it like the example showed or make copious notes or continually cull. There's a process that you have to put around that to then market. So if you haven't done this step yet, go back to go. This is where you begin. Agencies cannot succeed with bad data. They just, there's so much thrashing. You won't succeed without having a quality target list. And it changes. It's ephemeral. It morphs. A good list last year at this time is not a good list today at this time. First of all, hopefully you've signed some clients. They have to be culled off the list. There's prospects who you have identified who will never want to talk to you. Those should be culled off the list. And there's new entities coming on. So now let's move on to the value proposition. Hey, you know, we've been in business for over 150 years. And we have all access to all the big markets. We have awesome service. You know, everybody can say that. Or perhaps not people who haven't been in business a long time, but everybody can say that. You need to create a strong, a compelling elevator pitch, value proposition. I use those terms sometimes interchangeably. They're not. Your value proposition might be, we only service trucking accounts. We specialize in fleets of 50 to 150. We have the most senior agents in the marketplace. We have the most senior veteran CSRs available. So all of those things are crucial to you. All of those things are crucial. Make your value proposition compelling and unique, or as unique as possible to you. You can regionalize a value proposition. We are the best trucking agency in Georgia in the universe for these 3 reasons. Or 5 reasons. But you can't have 10 reasons. So we often refer to that as the big 3. Now, we have a list. We have a value proposition. We are great. We have a good start. So leads are being generated, and we have an example here of a lead, an appointment setting lead. You could call it a telemarketing lead. We think there's a higher level than telemarketing. But an appointment setting lead, this is very common, and the lead has come in. This is an actual lead. It came in on 8/29 at 9 a.m. Here's the phone number. Here's who it is. Preferably, particularly with a smaller operation, you want the owner, ideally. You're setting up probably a conference call appointment, perhaps a web meeting if you're up to that level, or an on-site meeting. But the on-site meeting should only be done if it's a well-qualified prospect, because you don't want to drive an hour and a half for somebody who's not a well-qualified prospect. So a lot of leads can and should begin with a compelling telephone, conference call, web meeting interaction. Now, this one has 36 trucks, 20 drivers, fine owner ops, great, they're national, no hazmat. Now, great, we have a really good lead. They're interested in speaking with you. They listen to the value proposition. It's perhaps a short telephone interaction. It might have taken 5 or 10 calls to get this. And now what? Well, now you need a lead handling process. Your lead comes in. Are you sending an Outlook invitation? Have you researched the organization? Are you going to mention something about their current insurance, the current carrier? Are you providing them with some collateral? How far out is the appointment? Do you have a different process for a week versus 2 weeks, or a day versus a week? And then, are you ready when you come to the appointment? Now, excuse me, this could be both a telephony-based lead, a traditional telemarketing appointment center lead. It could be an e-marketing, an inbound lead from a campaign that had gone out. Regardless, your agency needs a tight lead handling process, and ideally, you're going to close the loop. Very important. If you don't close the loop, meaning did they show, was it a good lead, was it worthwhile, are they going to the pipeline, did they close? It makes it harder to ROI your campaigns. Now, why even bother entertaining, for example, an appointment setting campaign? Why not just have the producers pound the phones? And I remember that from years ago. We'd hire a sales rep, a producer, the individual come aboard, and he would, for example, be given a Yellow Pages and a telephone, and good luck. Well, there's much better ways of doing it today, but for everyone on the line, whether you're a producer, whether you're an owner, whether you're a VP, producers are busy and their time is valuable and limited. So whether you supplement internally or you outsource it, it's tremendous potential if you give them a pipeline with leads coming in with a consistent lead process. So what should you expect? Well, a good appointment setter should average 20 to 25 hours per call. You could have an automated system, you could have no automation, as long as you have, meaning you could literally have it done on Excel spreadsheets, or you could do it in the cloud, or you could use a big contacts or Salesforce.com. But regardless, they should be doing 20 to 25 calls an hour, and what we've seen is about an appointment every hour and a half to 2 hours. There's a little elasticity there. The larger accounts can sometimes generate smaller, less appointments than the smaller accounts, though sometimes it depends on your unique value proposition. So here's a few examples. So here's a Mid-Atlantic agency targeting 5 to 75. So what does that mean? Well, they might go down to an owner-operator. They're probably not going to spend much time with an account over 100. This is kind of their target bullseye market. Great. It's been identified. Now they're growing nicely, and they need lead generation to sustain, to fuel that growth. They have some senior producers. They have some new producers. 128 appointments were booked year to date. That's about 4 appointments per week that they can expect. So how do we compare and contrast that with a Southwest agency? Well, you notice there isn't a big disparity between appointments. The profile doesn't change drastically, cutting out the 25 to 75, but on average, they'd probably see a few more appointments. And what about this Midwest agency? Well, it's a brand new project we started. We love looking at the empirical data. Notice that we're measuring. You should measure, whether you're doing it internally or outsourcing it. What gets measured gets done. Focus on that empirical data. So they were targeting 10 to 100 trucks, so a little larger than the Mid-Atlantic agency, but we didn't see a tremendous amount of elasticity. That could be because, for example, they're in a slightly better market. They could have had a slightly better list. They could have had a slightly better pitch. But so you can see, in general, we're seeing this 4 appointment per week average. And I think that's for approximately 10 hours of calling per week. So you can measure your own results or compare and contrast that. Absolutely a great credo is, am I getting an appointment every couple of hours? Then, of course, you want to measure how good are those appointments. We see about a 70% stickiness ratio for the first meeting. So book an appointment, a person shows up on the phone, 75% stick, you rebook the ones that don't. They could have had a client call, an emergency, etc. Now, what about as you go up the pipeline? What about when you go upstream? All right, so upstream, I really want to sell 50 to 250 for fleets, for power units. That's really my target. And I'm going national, or I'm going regional, it doesn't matter. So then, as you grow up the pipeline, as you go upstream, you should think about embellishing your campaigns by integrating them. So you do e-marketing and webinars, and then you follow up with warm calls. It takes a little more time to establish a relationship, serious interest with somebody who has 250 power units than it does with somebody who has 25, obviously. The commissions are much larger. The stakes are much larger. So think about an integrated approach as you go upstream. By the way, it doesn't mean that this can't work really well for the earlier example of somebody who's doing 5 to 50 or 10 to 75. But it's categorically important if you are going after the 100 to 250. And you want educational topics, whether it's e-marketing, information, a newsletter, a webinar series, all of the above, CSA regulation changes, HOS hours of service changes, ACA, which is, if you're selling benefits, a bit, obviously huge, especially with the owner-operator issues, defining owner-operators and what it means. What happens if I have 45 employees and 10 owner-operators? Am I over the threshold? So whatever it is, regulations, changes, updates, business acumen, topics, all important. Deliver value and then say, hey, I was the one who ran that webinar that you attended. In fact, I see you've been to 3 of my webinars. Obviously, you're looking for more information. Have you thought about somebody with an innovative perspective on your trucking insurance. So let's take a couple of case studies. Let's see what's actually happened. These are going to be the pragmatic examples. So here's an East Coast agency. They were targeting 50, and I'd say on the top end, maybe 150 power units. They're seeking rapid growth, and they're averaging 120 registrants and 75 attendees per webinar. And they got $400,000 in new commissions. I think that was in the first 6 months. So that's great. It shows there's a need. It shows they're fulfilling it. It shows there's interest. Those numbers are spectacular. Now, let's talk about this Midwest agency. They are size agnostic. They will target essentially anybody, 5 to 500, even an owner-operator. They're like, we do it all. We are trucking specialists. So they wanted to fill the pipeline, and they wanted to create this webinar series that would be both attractive not only to their prospects but to their clients. That was very smart. That was really brilliant. Two birds, one stone. Show clients you are giving them value by having these terrific speakers and topics, which could be your own internal speakers. It can be your consultants, your friends, your accountants, your CPAs, the consultants you use in your business, your carriers, lots of people to choose from. You could have topics of fuel theft, optimization, GPS. All of these topics are things that if you do it well, you'll have this terrific following. Now, this agency is averaging over 70 registrants and 40 attendees per webinar. I think they've been doing it now for a year and a half or more. So now we kind of come through the full lead gen perspective. And we want to talk a little bit about, well, now that we have these leads, we talked about the lead handling process. What are you sharing with them? And we often say, see, say, share. What is it that you can share with these people? You've already said something that interests them. They hopefully will go to your website. You'll look professional. They can see something. You should also share something. We recommend a branded collateral piece. It could also be a value proposition video. Look at this video. In 2 minutes, you'll see what we're about. It could be a recorded webinar. Have something professional that extends that value proposition to show them I'm a serious trucking agency. I'm not just somebody. And by the way, if you do this well, you can belie your size. You can look and sound, much more professional, much deeper, much more together, and convey digital professionalism that larger and more established and older agencies just may not get to. We've had conversations with CEOs of agencies. I've been in business 100 years, and I'm not even sure I believe in the internet, or this whole social media thing is never going to last, or ignore those 2 billion people, or we sell the old-fashioned way. All of those statements, and I'm a guy approaching 60, and I'll say all of those statements are untrue because the younger generation buys differently. They look at things differently. They're going to be the buyers of your future. They may be your buyers of today. So it's very important that as you progress, you take advantage of all these tools so that you can impress not only for today, but grab that business tomorrow. So the 6 keys to reiterate, and then we'll go into a quick Q&A. You need that quality list, and I see a lot of questions have come in about building a list. We'll tackle those. Craft that message. Make sure you have a well-defined and preferably written lead handling process. You might have a couple, one for larger fleets, one for smaller fleets or owner-operators. Call those smaller accounts or smaller accounts at a minimum. Touch base. Sprinkle on those. Drip on those. So when it comes time for the next renewal, you're the one that they think of. You're in front of them. For the larger accounts, same thing. But again, to a much larger, more integrated perspective. And don't forget to have those branded materials. Now with that, John, let's tackle the first few questions.
Well, thank you very much, Alan. And a number of questions have come in. And the first one that we have is, does startup selling help agencies build trucking lists? And if so, how?
So we we have this question. Not only do we get it just like in webinars like this, but even in kickoff meetings with trucking agencies, we talk about what is the status of your list. And most of the time, they don't have one, or it's out of date, or it's just a disaster. So you could use an organization, for example, like FleetSeek. There's several of them. And you could use an organization like this. And what you would do is you would take this list. If you don't know how to do it, Startup Selling helps you do this. You take the list, you scrub it to remove clients and prospects that you don't want, and then that becomes your executable list. Now, that can be done every 2 months, for example. If you want to go 60 days out, you could do the list for the year, though we recommend you do that in smaller pieces, and it's ongoing and recurring, and we then build this list for you and put it in the cloud, which can either go into a contact management system that you have or we have, or it can go actually on spreadsheets in the cloud, whichever is easier for the client. But the list is crucial, and yes, we help agencies build these all the time.
The next question we have is, how do you create a call pitch for an agency?
So it's amazing to me because agencies are so outwardly facing, they're people, that they might have this in their head, but they don't have it written down anywhere on paper. So they could probably do it, or they just wing it based upon, the rapport building at the time. So we want to synthesize this into a pitch that can be replicated, and we interview our clients, and we interview the owners or the senior producers or both, and we help them come up with their elevator pitch and their value proposition. If the value proposition isn't on the website, we help them synthesize it so it can go on their website. If it is on the website, we help cull it and turn it into an elevator pitch. It's a pretty fast process. You'd be surprised. But think about it. When you leave today, if John Scranton called you on the phone and said, okay, you attended our webinar, you have 30 seconds with me on the phone, what's your elevator pitch? Or what's your big 3 differentiators? And that's the way you create it.
Thanks, Al. The next question we have is, are telemarketing and webinar services from Startup Selling or other marketing providers typically territory exclusive?
So I could bet where that question came from. We get that frequently. It's because you can get these lists online, and a lot of them, they'll say, well, we'll only send these out to 5 brokers, to 5 agents. Which means you're guaranteed to be in a competitive war with 5 other people. So we do things on a territory exclusive basis. We recommend to agencies, if they're working with somebody, if they don't do it internally, if they're doing it as an outsource, it should be on a territory exclusive basis. That's our recommendation. Good question.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Alan, and thank you everyone for attending today. We had a very large audience who stayed the entire time. We appreciate that. If you'd like more information or a copy of today's presentation, please contact me. My name and phone number are on the screen now. With that, today's web seminar is now ending. We hope you all have a great day.